We are The Meltdown. Welcome into our spoiler filled review of Heretic, starring Hugh Grant here in 2024, released by A24. If you haven't seen it, maybe go check it out. Come back to this spoiler discussion. We look forward to having you join us. If you have seen it, give us a big thumbs up. Let us know you're here in the comment section below as well. We always enjoy interacting with you. I am Tim Melton. That is Tyler Johns, and we are two missionaries of the Meltdown here to talk with you today. And we look very forward to talking about this one, another horror movie that's come out this year, and a year full of horror movies. I think this one, Tyler, is a little bit above the Mendoza line. I think it actually is a quality film, and I think we will have some complaints for sure to get
Mhm.
into. But overall, I enjoyed myself during the movie Heretic.
I would agree with you. This in a year with a lot of really awful horror movies with dumb premises, looking at you Night Swim. This actually stands out as not just one that was very tense the whole way through, but a good thinking movie as well.
I totally agree with you on that. It did feel like a game was being played during
Yes.
this. It felt a little bit more like a jigsaw type killer
Hmm.
compared to just a slasher, just like a Terrifier. Even though that's a movie that we really enjoyed. Check out our list of favorite horror movies of the year so far. This was a movie that was judged by me of how long it could remain uneasy and polite at the same time, meaning that the tension wouldn't be broke by one player showing their cards, whether it was the girls or whether it was Hugh Grant. And I thought that they did that for a tremendous amount of time on screen. About halfway through the movie, it finally breaks to where these girls realize they're truly under threat and they got to do something about it. They start to realize that they need to be looking over their shoulder, but they don't know that they're in extreme danger until that politeness barrier is broken. And I think that's part of the beauty of the script, which I actually think is the strongest part of this film.
I agree.
I think the dialogue back and forth is extremely strong between the girls and Hugh Grant. And to me, that is the thing I champion most walking away from this is that it really does present itself like a tennis match back and forth at times where they're both lobbing ideas at one another. And it really is like a debate you'd want to perk up for at a coffee shop compared to maybe your standard horror script, which is typically squish and blood and spew veins everywhere. It has that too. It has that too. But I thought that the wittiness of the script was something that propelled this into a think piece.
Oh, definitely. The dialogue, like you said, just unmatched. This was so good. It does such a great job of just building the tension through the dialogue and making you pay attention to every single word because you're so on edge that you're waiting for that other shoe to drop, but you're hanging on to every little quote. And it's like, oh well, does
Right.
this word here suggest this? Does this suggest this?
Right.
I don't know what to believe.
You're looking for clues. You're looking for, as an audience member, a way out as well. You're trying to figure out how this whole thing works and what it's going to devolve into. And I think that is part of the genius of the film. Let's get to some of the big standouts in the positive category
Hmm.
again. I think we agree Hugh Grant is fantastic in this film
Yes,
as
does
Mr.
great job.
Reed. I would have liked maybe just a little bit more background on his character.
Yes.
How did he get to a point where this is the thing that drives him?
Hmm.
I mean, I think a lot of people will find the genius is that you can sort of fill in your own backstory on him. But I would have loved maybe knowing a little bit more about where did his personal life go astray to lead him into this obsessive religious uh, zealot at times. And I would have loved to have seen exactly what sort of motivated him to become this character that we see at this point in his life in the film. The acting from the two girls,
Great.
fantastic in this. The members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter day Saints, Sister Barnes, played by Sophie Thatcher, and Sister Paxton, played by Chloe East. This is an extremely well cast film, and I thought the performances overall were stellar, and they had to be to invest you into the script that was there, at least through the first two-thirds of the film.
I agree. It definitely had to, and they do such a great job of just just rallying back these ideas and making the audience think and really just want to sink their teeth into what's happening next and just not let their eyes leave the screen.
For sure. I agree with you on that. It does draw you in, almost like Hugh Grant opening up the door. It draws you in, and there's little things that seem off, but also you can see where a character may be able to rationalize some of those things being in the
Mhm.
setting they're in. I think the pacing of this movie is really good, especially early on, where it takes the two girls nearly no time to end up at the house. That's the movie that's being promoted, and it
Oh, yeah.
gets you right into the action almost within the first 10 minutes. And I thought that that was so smart.
Oh, it was so good. I was expecting when they walk up to the house, oh, this is gonna be the first name on their little list that they've got. Nope, 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 we're getting right into the meat and potatoes
Yep.
out of the gate.
It does not waste your time, and I really like that. I love the Monopoly analogy, the whole monologue of all the different versions of Monopoly, and some of the tension that's cut with the humor of that monologue. And I just that if there's something that's going to get YouTubed over and over and over again from this film, I like to find those within films of what's going to be
Mhm.
the clip people are searching for. It's going to be the Hugh Grant Monopoly board scene from Heretic, in my opinion.
I agree. Now, I don't think you've seen this movie, but what that scene really reminds me of is an old documentary called Zeitgeist, which basically goes into that and some other conspiratorial stuff. But that's what this movie made me think of. It was this guy who is just starting to learn all these all these different ancient religions
Mhm.
and going and just noticing all the patterns within them, which was great. It
Well, that's
added a
good.
lot of depth to
That's
his
good it
character.
called you back to something that you already liked, which is a good thing about a movie like this that is presenting itself as a pretty straightforward, low budget thriller that
Mhm.
really is dependent on its script. So the fact that it brought you back to something you already liked is a good sign.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it's basically the same conversation. The entirety of Zeitgeist is, going into these ancient religions, and then they connect it to, tax exemptions and everything like that, and you see in the movie, Hugh Grant's picking up the Monopoly board and saying, "Look, it's the same."
Yeah, and then talks about how the idea always starts someplace else and then it
Yeah.
ends up there's different iterations and stuff like that, different editions, and so the fact that you're making that parallel, you're making that connection while it's happening in real time, I think it's a pretty strong, shot there to the senses.
I am surprised that, Hugh Grant didn't go into Zoroastrianism, though.
He did not.
He did not.
Maybe in the sequel. There won't be one. I thought the house was very effectively creepy. I think
Yes.
there's enough about it that's charming and creepy at the same time, which you had to find that perfect balance. Now, here's where we start to get into some of the negatives, for me at
Oh,
least,
yeah.
and I don't know if you agree. I didn't really like any of the old woman stuff.
I
Like,
am I'm with you 1000%. As soon as that started happening, I could feel myself liking the movie less. I just thought you had a perfect setup by just making it basically an escape
yeah,
room. They've gotta get out of your house of horrors,
yeah.
and keep their faith intact. I don't think you need to do the whole parlor trick with the dead woman and
I
and make them believe in a false resurrection.
I totally agree. If they'd kept it simple, I think this could have been an all-timer, and instead they decide, "You know what? We're gonna feed the audience some laced blueberry pie and see if they can handle it." And I felt my whole body checking out the minute we started getting into that level of parlor tricks compared to actual substance, which
Yep.
is what we had for the first 2/3 of this film. So, I was frustrated with that aspect of it. I didn't find it to be creepy or gross or interesting. I found it to be
It's just boring.
I don't wanna use the word lazy, but that's the one I'm gonna use. It felt lazy to me, like, "Okay, how do we amp up the horror in this?" And I really just wanted more of a battle of the wills
Oh,
for
yeah.
some reason, rather than sort of the supernatural creepiness that we were ended up getting on the screen. I left the film with way more questions than answers, which narratively I don't have a problem with. This film is one that presents the question of are you a believer or non-believer, and do you have more questions or more answers in your own life? So I've got no problem that the narrative is vague and open-ended about whether or not there was actually an escape that took place or not. But what was frustrating for me is I kinda lost track of the logistics of the movie in trying to figure out where we were at any given point following the characters, and at the end, it feels like it's sort of this mad dash around the house, but yet you're running in circles with the main character, And I don't really love how each character arc ended
Oh,
of
yeah.
the 3
Yeah.
main characters in this film. It all felt kind of unsatisfying when the rest of the movie was so satisfying. So it climbs, and then there's a steep drop off for me in this film. And the first 2 thirds I was ready to champion as being maybe the most well-written movie of the year.
I
And then it gets kinda stupid and it gets kinda dumb.
it gets really dumb.
It gets real dumb in a movie that is so smart, and it's almost like they're ashamed of being as smart and witty as they are in the first 2 thirds, and I just felt
Either
that
that or it treats its audience as dumb, and it's like, well, we can't just have it all be this intense battle of the wills, people examining their own beliefs and worldview. We gotta have some supernatural ghosties in there.
and you know what? I was very disappointed by that because
Yeah, it
I
was.
think the
It was
audience
very
was
disappointing.
intelligent enough to really champion this thing and keep it going. And I think a movie like Conclave, which you can check our review out, it does a good job of not insulting the audience's intelligence. And while there are some narrative things in that that left me feeling sort of unfulfilled, it wasn't as steep of a drop off as what I saw in Heretic. I thought it had strong cinematography and editing throughout the course of the movie.
Agreed.
Topher Grace is in this, which
I'm so glad we get to bring up Topher Grace. I
like
was waiting on it.
I didn't know that until the credits at the end. Did you know Topher Grace was in it
I
going in?
not going in, but when he showed up, I went, "Oh, there's Eric Foreman."
You noticed him? I couldn't
I
tell it was him.
absolutely noticed him. I am a massive That 70 Show fan, Tim.
I like Topher Grace for the most part, but I didn't recognize that was him until I saw the credits because there's only like 10 people in the credits.
Right.
So when I saw Topher Grace,
He was like, where was he at?"
I knew he was playing Elder Kennedy in that.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's heavy makeup or if he's aged to a point where I've got to go back and watch it now, but there's almost like no stills on
It
the internet of this
kind of
character.
looked like both in the
Yeah.
movie.
I mean, and he's sort of like the only hope for these 2 girls at one point, and I just did not know that was Topher Grace. So, Topher Grace is in this. I love the mental game of this movie, and I really disliked almost everything physical in this movie. When the
Yep.
game is mental, when the movie is mental, when it's challenging your inner thoughts, it's so strong. And when it's just a sort of we have to have physical conclusion to all of these different loose ends narratively of questions we've set up, that's when the film falters for me. So it is a very solid 3.5 out of 5 to me, but it's actually closer to a 3 than it is a 4. What's your final grade on Heretic?
Um, it's probably a bad way to do the video, but it's a 3.5 out of 5 for me, closer to a 3 than it is a 4.
Okay.
This had the potential to be a 4, 4.5. I'm not gonna say 5 star, but it had a chance to be an all timer. Well, one of the best horror movies of the year, and it just completely fumbled the bag.
It's in the upper echelon. If you have that line, is it on the good or bad line? It's on the good line. There's
Mhm.
no doubt. But it could have been on that 3 years from now recommending this movie to somebody
Yeah.
going, "You haven't seen Heretic?" And
What are you doing?
what are you doing? And it's not that, unfortunately, even though I could immediately rewatch the first 2 thirds of this
I'm
movie
right there with
and
you.
enjoy it again. I mean, it is just a movie that lost its momentum because it decided, "You know what? Instead of having this mental back and forth, we're just going to flip the board. We're not even going to finish the game." And that's really sort of the best analogy that I can use. If you've seen the movie, you know that that's pretty spot on. So,
That was good.
what did you think of Heretic? Let us know. We would love to hear from you in the comment section down below. We also want to remind you that if you love playing games, you can play at our title sponsor. That's my bookie, where you can bet and play absolutely anything, anytime, anywhere, only with my bookie. Go check them out. And we hope that you use promo code next round for that first time deposit bonus. Once again, if you missed it, we gave a list of our best horror movies of the year leading up to Halloween 31st of 2024. Check out that video where we go through our favorites. Tyler has his 8, I have mine, and that's a great companion piece here for this Heretic review on the Meltdown.